Shalom. Today we're going to study a very beautiful Torah from the Keter Shem Tov about the 3 stages every soul goes through when trying to get closer to God. When a soul is awakened, is called upon from on high to start becoming closer to God, to start looking at this world through different eyes, it goes through stages. It's not a linear, direct journey or process. It's complicated, and there are stages in which we feel suddenly not only we may feel we're getting closer, but then suddenly we could feel we're not getting closer anymore. We could suddenly feel distance. We may feel distanced, and we may feel that Hashem is hiding His face from us, that God is hiding His face from us. And so this beautiful, very beautiful Torah is about how to deal with this, how to understand the stages that we're going through, and what to do in each and every stage. So the Torah begins as many of the greatest new novel ideas that are brought forth by Hasidut as a reinterpretation of a traditional source. So we should understand that Hasidut was really a revolution. It was a revolution in Jewish thinking, but we can call it a conservative revolution. What do I mean by a conservative revolution? I mean that usually revolutions or revolutionaries are very disrespectful of tradition, and they toss away tradition. And that's most of the revolutions we know in history have been about overthrowing the previous regime, the previous worldview. Sometimes went along with book burning, or with storming the Bastille, or whatever it is. It's something that's very rapid, that's very and again it overthrows what came before. But the Hasidic Revolution was the very opposite. Hasidic Revolution was all about preserving the tradition, preserving the Torah observance and observing the commandments, and also preserving all the previous texts that came before, not overthrowing or taking away, or taking out, or eliminating any book out of the Jewish bookshelf, but radically reinterpreting things. And even when I say radically reinterpreting things, I mean in a very interesting way, in which you still preserve the traditional reading. You say that's also true, but a deeper reading would show you a different facet of the Torah, a different facet of divine truth. Divine godliness is infinite, God's light is infinite, and also His Torah needs to be infinite. So the Torah is finite, but the Torah has infinite depth and infinite facets of meaning. And the whole idea of Hasidut was to reveal the hidden levels, the inner layers of the Torah, where the infinity of God becomes more present, more tangible. We can see it. So the simple, straightforward meaning is preserved, but then another meaning is brought to light, and sometimes it's so different, it's actually the opposite. It can actually go all this way. So the source we're going to look at now is a source from the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the first book of the oral Torah. The oral Torah was, of course, oral. It wasn't written, but at some point it had to be written down in order to be preserved. And so it was written in the 2nd century. It's written in 2nd century Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and it sums up all of the oral Torah up to that point, and it forms the foundation of the Talmud. The Talmud is the expansion, all the interpretation, all the sages learning and going deeper into the Mishnah. So this Mishnah is from Kiddushin. Kiddushin deals with matrimony, with a man sanctifying a woman. And because tradition, of course, it's the man who marries the woman or sanctifies the woman. So we're going to read now the first part of the tractate of Kiddushin. It's one of the tractates of the Mishnah. And it starts in this way. It starts, a woman is acquired in 3 ways. So just to be clear, we're not talking about buying women. We don't buy women in Judaism. When by the term a woman is acquired, it means the acquiring of the sole right to be intimate with that woman. That's the idea of marriage, really. That's the definition of marriage, is the man acquires the sole right to be intimate with the woman. So that's the meaning of this term. A woman, that is, the right to be intimate with a woman, is acquired in three ways. Either by money, by paying a certain sum of money, which signifies this acquisition of this right, or by document, by signing a certain document, or by intercourse, by actually having intercourse with the meaning of this is now realizes this marital union. Now, actually, just you should know, in Jewish weddings today, we actually do all three. So the ring that the groom gives to the bride, that's the money, or the equivalent of something that's worth money. And the ketubah that is signed, that's a document that is signed in which it says what the obligations of the groom to the bride and the obligations of the bride to the groom. They're all written in the ketubah, and that's the document signed. And then, of course, after the wedding, they go to their house, and then the marital union is consummated. So that's the source. That's the part that we want to focus on. And so what is the Baal Shem Tov going to do with this now? So he does something really, really amazing. He says, well, when we think about a man and a woman and conjugal union, we can think about humans and men and women. But male and female are also symbolic of God and man, in which God is the male counterpart, because God is perceived as transcendent and not as part of nature, not as present visibly, ostensibly in nature, but as something that's transcendent and coming from above, that is a kind of male energy or male symbol. We can think about this. Well, it says, it's a famous question of why God language is male. Why are we referring to God as male? And I think the very simple answer to this is that it has to do with our perception of our mothers and our fathers. We are born out of our mothers. Therefore, having been inside their body and coming out of it, and then feeling physically very close to them and also suckling from them, that is a metaphor, or that is for us an archetypal image of immanence as opposed to transcendence. Immanence is when I feel that something is present and near and close to me, and I'm a part of it and it's part of me. And that's like the kind of connection we have with our mothers, being, again, present in their body and coming out of it. Whereas our fathers, we don't have this very, very intimate connection that we came out of their bodies. We are told they are our fathers. And in fact, the reason we're talking about marriage and the institution of family, the whole thing began in order for fathers to know who their offspring are. Because it's not a direct immediate result of the sexual union, and in order to know who the father is, you need to have marriage, and then for the child also, for us also, in a very sort of deep psychological way, we know who our mothers are because we came out of them, we can say, but our fathers, we're told that they're our fathers. So that's a metaphor for transcendence. So God is, of course, above gender and includes both genders, and he can't be described as such as male or female, obviously. However, we do adopt a masculine language regarding God because of this reason, in order to first experience or appreciate the transcendent aspect of godliness as opposed to the immanent aspect. We need to refer to God as male, because then we have the experience that it's something that's not like like Mother Nature or Mother Earth that we were born out of. It's something that's beyond the universe, beyond nature, and the image for a transcendent parental figure would be a father, not a mother. However, of course, there's also a maternal, feminine aspect to divinity, and that has to do with his immanent presence. But when we're starting out our journey, we need to experience godliness as transcendent, and therefore we use male language and male metaphors. So then God becomes the male, and so who are we? We are the female. And the Jewish people as a whole are called Knesset Israel, the congregation of Israel. That's a feminine term, and it's a feminine image. And it's a recurring motif throughout the Bible that the Jewish people are referred to as God's wife or as a woman. And again, God is the groom. And of course, we can expand this. We're not just talking about the congregation of Israel. We're talking about humanity at large. And so all of humanity, all of humankind becomes the woman or women, and God becomes the male, the groom. So now, using this metaphor, this whole Mishnah that we just read about 3 ways in which a woman is acquired, or in which the intimacy with a woman is acquired, it can be read as a metaphor for 3 ways, or in this case, it's going to become 3 stages in how God acquires an intimacy with us, or how God marries us, or how God takes us from, in traditional times, the groom used to lift his bride and enter the house with her. It's not a Jewish custom, but it does have to do with the Hebrew word of nisuin, marriage, which is to raise up, that the man, so to speak, raises up the woman. So here in this case, it's God raising us up, bringing us closer to Him, and in order to become intimate with Him, to have a union, a spiritual union with God. So again, we're starting with this Mishnah, that's legal Jewish tractate, very ancient. It talks about 3 different alternative ways of realizing a marital union. But now in the Baal Shem Tov's hands, it becomes not either this or this or this, it becomes this and then this and then this. 3 different stages in coming closer to God. So let's go over them one by one. So the first option of how to acquire the intimacy with a woman was money, paying a certain sum of money. So we have to learn the Hebrew word for this. So the Hebrew word is kesef. That's the word for money. It actually also means silver. In Hebrew, money and silver are the very same word, kesef. But kesef also, it means something else also. Kesef is the root for a very beautiful Hebrew word, which is kisufim. Kisufim means yearning or longing. So the first stage, according to the Baal Shem Tov, is that when a soul is awakened, it receives from on high, in order to be awakened, in order to start its journey of coming closer to Hashem, a certain amount of longing that it's not coming from us. It's something that suddenly awakes within us. We don't know what it is and how it came about, but we suddenly experience a great deal of kisufim, longing. So the Baal Shem Tov describes it as chesed. Chesed means grace. There are days of grace that the Almighty grants us in His good grace, and then we're kosef, we are having this kisufim, this longing, this desire, this excitement to become closer to Hashem, to learn God's Torah, to pray to God, to become close to this new thing that suddenly we realize is behind everything in the universe, and it's the soul of the universe, and so on. So I usually liken this, when we were kids, we played the game of Monopoly. And in Monopoly, you start out by having a certain sum of money that you get for free. It's like a loan. It's like, a parent giving his children a certain amount of money to start off their business, start off their world. They have to get on their own, but you start off with a certain loan that you get in order to get you started. And it's money, but but in this case, we can liken this to this loan that we're getting. It's like a loan of longings. The longings, the desire, the spiritual awakening that we're experiencing, we haven't earned it in any way. We haven't worked for it. But we're getting this energy and this excitement as a kind of loan from above. And as we're going to see, because it's a loan, it's going to run out. But it gets us started. So there are moments in life, and everyone who's had any kind of spiritual awakening knows this very, very well. There is a moment in your life that suddenly you're overwhelmed by a spiritual excitement. That suddenly you don't care about physical belongings or material belongings. You don't care about what people think about you. You don't care about the future so much. You have this sudden realization that there's more to life than this, and there's more to the universe than this, and there's something deep, spiritual and mysterious that's going on in the world, and you have to connect with this. You have to bind your soul with this infinite light, this infinite godly presence. And you can give it many names, but the feeling is very similar, and it's a feeling of spiritual awakening or longing. And so again, longing in Hebrew comes from the same word as money, and we can think about it as a certain sum of money or energy that we're given from above in order to awaken us, in order to get us moving and going and looking upwards towards the heaven or beyond this world. And he says, so this period, this stage is called, he calls it first greatness. What do you mean by first greatness? Greatness is when is an expansion of your mind, your heart, your being is expanded, but it's a first stage, because after this expansion is going to come a contraction, and this is the second stage. It says what happens afterwards. It says after a certain time, it runs out. You're flooded with lights, and you feel it's something eternal is going on in your heart, in your head, that you're touching eternity, but you're only touching eternity, and therefore it passes. The eternal moment ends, and you suddenly find yourself again. The room is dark, the lights are dimming, the excitement is leaving you, and maybe you even made some big changes to your life. Maybe you went to study somewhere, or you started on a journey, and you talk to everyone about how you're excited to having this spiritual awakening, but then suddenly it leaves you, and you're empty and you're alone, and you say, what happened? I don't know what happened. I felt so close. I suddenly became attached to this infinite light, and how can it disappear? It's not something that can disappear, but it does. It always does, and it has to. And the image that I used of alone at the beginning of the Monopoly game is very similar, because when we inherit something, then because we haven't earned it in any way, it was just like a gift, then we don't know how to spend it, we don't know how to use it, and it has to leave. It wasn't really ours to begin with. It was an awakening from above, not from below. It's not something that we worked on and we strived and we got to a certain place. It was given to us, and then because it was given to us, it's also taken from us. So the lights, the kisufim, the kesef, the longing, disappear. What was the second stage in the tractate of how to acquire intimacy with a woman? Marrying a woman was a document, signing a document, right? Which today in Jewish weddings is the ketubah. The second stage is what we're left with is really the written text of the Torah. The written text of the Torah is just a text. It's not a spiritual experience. It's not a mystical experience. It's not something that it means that you have to suddenly become very sober, and you have to open the books, and you have to read very carefully, and you have to think about it. And you don't feel God's presence, because one of the main images for this, which he's not putting this here, but it's mentioned somewhere else, that it's the feeling of that God has left. It's like our husband. We married our husband, God, but he left. He went for a journey, a business journey somewhere in another country, and he left us a love letter. The Torah is like the love letter. The Torah and all the books are the love letters of God to us. And what do we do when our loved one is away and we can't see their face, right? Pre-internet time. We're just reading the letters and over again, and we're looking at every detail, and and this is our way of getting closer to Hashem. So this is a stage. It's also, by the way, a stage in the history of the development of Judaism, that we can say that the stage of longing corresponds to the age of prophecy, that there were prophets who were here to give manifestation to the longing, because they made us feel that God is close and near and is talking to us directly. But then prophecy faded out, and what faded in, what the sun of prophecy rose, but another sun or a moon rose, and the sun of prophecy set, and the moon of wisdom rose. So now we have in the history of Judaism, we're moving from the age of prophecy to the age of wisdom, the age of the sages that were studying the text. And the same goes for each and every one of us. There's a stage in which we're like prophets. That's the stage of longing and spiritual awakening. But then prophecy, the sun of prophecy sets, and the moon of wisdom rises, and now we have to study Torah by moonlight because it's dark, the sun has set, but we have the text. So we married, but then our loved one goes away, and or another image is we can say we married, we're very excited, and we wake up and say, what did we do? Because maybe the experience of love is now shaky. It's the lights of falling in love are gone. But now we have this document that we signed, that we're married. And so the second stage, the document stage, which is, you see here, you signed a document that says that you fell in love with God and you married God, and you may not feel so, may not have such a lively faith or feeling of excitement and the love that you experienced yesterday, but you signed the document, so you have to be true to your word. And also, we can think of the document as, again, the love letter of God. Either way, it's a text, and all we have now is the text. And the second stage says, don't give up. This is a test. This is a very important stage that you have to go through and not give up. You'll be tempted to give up. You'll be tempted to say, well, since I don't experience love anymore, we should break the marriage. That's what happens to many couples. They fall in love, and then the initial infatuation, fades out at some point, and then you're left with a dilemma. If you're a romantic and you think you should experience constant, passionate love, otherwise you have to divorce, then you fail the test, and you say, well, I don't experience love. So love died. The love died. We tried, but it died, and now I have to go because I can't stay because I'm not in love. It's not so simple. If you pass the test, it means you're saying, well, the first kind of love disappeared. Now there's an opportunity for a second kind of love, or a second kind of communication, of connection. And this is the document. The document is being true to your word, being loyal, being obligated, and going deeper into the words, the texts, the ideas, the meaning, and looking for God in the words. And you can, by the way, all this is also a metaphor for relationships. The first stage, the kesef kisufim, longing stage, would be again, like we said, the infatuation, falling in love. And the second stage is when the initial kind of love fades, and now you have to stay out of commitment. But it's definitely love. It's a different kind of love. It's a love of going through the hard times, using the fact that the memory and the knowledge that I made a decision out of a very deep place in myself, that I'm going through with this, and now it's going through the hardships and maintaining the relationship and working on it despite the fact that we're not overwhelmed by passionate love as we used to. So again, same goes for relationship, and same goes with our relationship with God. It's very, very similar. And so the second stage is the written letters of the book. It says whether it's the letters of the Torah or the letters of the prayer book. And you don't feel passionate, but you still have to pray, which means you have to work. And really what's happening at this stage is now we're working to regain the lights, the passion, the spiritual excitement that we had in the first stage. Now we're working to regain it, but we have to earn it. That's really what's happening. We could think that, well, I had this amazing spiritual experience, but it left me. And now, there's no reason for staying. There is a reason for staying. The reason for staying is now, the first was just a taste. You got that loan, that spiritual excitement and passion, to give you a taste of intimacy with God. And now you have to earn it. And that's why we're taking it away. Now let's see if you can work on it on your own. And this is the document stage. Staying committed to the Torah, to God's service, and going deeper into the letters, like a love letter, or like the document that I signed, and now I want to be true to my word, and so on. And then we get to the third stage. And the third stage in the original tractate was, again, in this tractate, it wasn't stages, it was options, either money, or a document, or simply having intercourse. So the third stage is the union itself. It's the highest stage. What was one of the alternatives, third alternative becomes here the third ultimate stage. And the stage is of regaining and enacting and living the actual union, because really the first stage wasn't really a union. It was very passionate. We had this longing and excitement, but we were so young, so immature, and we didn't earn it. We didn't work on this on our own. But when we get to the third stage, it's like coming full circle, but it's not really a circle, it's a spiral. The whole idea was that we start with the longing, and then we experience descent. We experience that the longing is, the passion is gone, and we have to study the text. But if we pass the test, if we don't fail and we don't give up, then we get to go up even higher. And we get to something that's similar to the first stage, but it's really much higher. It's the lights, the passion, the excitement, the feeling of God's presence comes back to us, but this time we've built vessels to contain those lights. So we can say the first stage was just having a lot of lights, and the second stage, the lights are gone, but through the commitment to the document, to the text, to God's service, to the fulfilling the commandments, we're building vessels in order for the lights of the first stage to come back into the vessels, and that's really the third stage. The third stage is that the lights and the pleasure, the ta'anug, come back, and this is like an actual intercourse, an actual intimate union with God. But this time it's real, and this time it lasts. It's not lights that flash and then disappear, like a flash of lightning, and it's not just going through the hardships of building vessels despite not experiencing light. It's the light and the passion and the feeling of proximity and the feeling of feeling God's presence in our lives. But now it stays. Now we can maintain it over time, because it's not, it's not an infatuation. It's not a childish, excitement over something we don't really understand, because we worked hard for this, and we learned and we studied, and we gained the ability to contain this wonderful, high, passionate lights of intimacy with God. So these are the three stages. This was all from Keter Shem Tov, part 10, Torah 10, and I hope you enjoyed this. And for me, it was one of the most fundamental Torah ideas that I've ever learned. It explained so much to me, and it helped me make sense of my own experience of going through the second stage, because that's really the hard one, the hard stage. The stage I used to be when I started becoming closer to Torah, to Judaism, to God, I went through these stages, but I didn't understand I was going through them. And this Torah really helped me make sense of what's going on and persevere, go through the darkness, go through the hardship, and I hope it helps you too. So goodbye, and I'll see you next time.